Have you ever noticed how the original Elite Four seem to specialize in 2 types instead of 1? Ice Trainer Lorelei has just as many water types as ice types. Fighting Trainer Bruno has 2 Onyx. Agatha claims to be a ghost expert, but her whole team is poison type. And finally, Lance is the Dragon Master, but over half his team is flying type. As champion in the Johto games, they're all flying types. But what if this privilege was extended to gym leaders? What types would they add, and how would their teams change? In this video, I answer those questions for every single one. Brock immediately works as a ground specialist in addition to rock, but to keep his team from boringly remaining identical, let's add on a Sandshrew, since his only gym trainer already uses one. You know what, in fact, for every gym leader that has less than 5 Pokemon, I'll toss on an extra just because it'd be fun. Also, yes, the ground specialty does overlap with Giovanni in the same region, and we're all gonna be okay with that, and any future overlaps, because they are impossible to avoid. Misty's ace is Starmie, so she works well as a dual water psychic specialist. She drops Staryu and replaces it with Slowpoke, then finally adds on Psyduck. She uses it in Let's Go, and while it's not a psychic type, it kinda should have been. Psy is in its name. Lieutenant Surge doesn't have a single dual-typed Pokemon to look at, except Magnemite in Let's Go, but I'm not giving him Steel. Like, Magnemite and Magneton are the only Steel types in the Kanto Dex. So I instead propose Fighting. Surge is big, buff, and fought in a war. We ditch Pikachu since he's keeping Raichu, then we tack on Mankey and Machoke. Machoke is the strongest fighting type I feel comfortable adding. Erika has 2 grass poison types in all of her Kanto game appearances, so it would be logical to make her a grass poison specialist. I would add on Ivysaur, but that's probably not allowed since no other Kanto leaders use starters, so we'll instead tack on Arbok. Snakes can help control pests in your garden. So I didn't just pull this out of nowhere, like it makes some amount of sense. If this is a Kanto game, Koga is the next gym leader, and he would absolutely add on Bug. While he uses no bug types in Gens 1 and 3, he has Venomoth in Let's Go, and then as an Elite Four member in the Johto games, he has 3 different bug types. For his Kanto gym leader team, I'd like to see him roll with Weezing, Muck, Beedrill, Ace, Venomoth, and Pinsir. But if this is a Johto game, then Janine is the Fuchsia City gym leader, and honestly, she's already set for being another poison bug specialist like her dad. 3/5 of her team is already bug type, so there's really not anything I have to do, but I would ditch one Ariados for a Pinsir. I feel like Pinsir deserves some gym leader love. It's like the only Kanto bug line that no gym leader has ever used. I really hope that's true. And now I feel like I have to Google it. Okay, Bugsy uses one on his Heart Gold Soul Silver rematch team, but like, it's a rematch. I'm talking about like the first battle. Sabrina is a psychic specialist, but she would add on Fairy. This may at first sound odd due to how spooky she is, but like, I don't really want to give her Dark and Ghost because like there's so little options, if any. And I actually think Fairy pairs well, since not only does it work with her Mr. Mime, but also after being defeated in the Johto games, she says the ability to love, I think, is some kind of psychic ability. Yeah, that's definitely Fairy. Love, nice things, that's Fairy. Her new team is her Ace Alakazam and of course Mr. Mime, then Slowbro and Jinx from her Let's Go team, then lastly Clefable. Blaine is up next and like Lieutenant Surge has no dual type Pokemon in the Kanto games. And I want to give him Electric.
What?
Not only does it pair well with his scientist background, but also I can give him the fun pair of Electabuzz and Magmar. He'd also have Magneton, then his classic Rapidash and Ace Arcanine. If Giovanni is still a Kanto leader, he is 100% a ground normal specialist. The dude uses Kangaskhan and Persian so many times, and frankly, it's a little weird they don't end up in his final battle. So his gym team would be the 2 I just mentioned, plus Nidoqueen, Nidoking, and Rhydon. And then we skip over Blue, because we can't give him 2 types, he already has way more than that. Faulkner is clearly a flying normal specialist, using only Pidgey and Pidgeotto. First off, I'm ditching that Pidgey, since Hoot Hoot would make so much more sense, and his extra Pokemon is Spearow. Now his entire team is normal flying, but it's 3 different evolutionary lines. Bugsy's team is Scyther, Metapod, and Kakuna, and while that's only 1 flying type, Metapod eventually becomes one, so he's gonna tack on flying type. Scyther and Metapod stay, then Ladybug replaces Kakuna, and then we add on Yanma. Johto gym leaders should have used more Johto Pokemon. Whitney would definitely be normal fairy, since in modern mechanics, half of her 2 Pokemon team is fairy already. And she's pink, and her whole gym is a Clefairy. I feel strongly that if fairy had existed when she was introduced, she would have been a fairy specialist. In addition to Clefairy and Miltank, I would give her Jigglypuff, a normal fairy type. Not giving her anything stronger than that, because frankly, the Miltank is enough. Morty is frankly super lame. Okay, to clarify, I think Morty himself is actually pretty cool. I like his scarf, but his team is lame. He's a ghost specialist with only 1 line of Pokemon, but we can pull an Agatha with him and add on Poison to expand his options. Gengar obviously stays as his ace, as can one Haunter. Then he gets Mischievous, something he should have had the whole time, then finally Coughing and Golbat, since they're found in the Burned Tower, which he frequents. Is this way too close to Agatha's team? Absolutely yes, but it's not my fault. It's the developers for not adding more freaking ghost types. Chuck would add on water since his ace is Poliwrath and he lives in a coastal town. You even find him under a waterfall. Poliwrath stays, then Primeape gets swapped out for Hitmontop, so he has at least 1 Johto Pokemon. Then finally, I'd add Kingler, a physical attacking water type. Jasmine has always disappointed me for having Steelix, super cool, but then 2 measly Magnemites when there were multiple cool Gen 2 Steel types she could have used instead. So I'm gonna fix that problem and also make her a ground specialist because Steelix is a ground type. 1 Magnemite can stay, but the other is replaced by Phanpy, which is close in stat total. Finally, we add Skarmory, a Pokemon I think she should have had this whole time. Maybe if she had used Skarmory, then fewer people would think that Skarmory is a Gen 3 Pokemon. No major trainers in the Johto games use Skarmory. It's super weird. Okay, she uses one in her Heart Gold Soul Silver rematch team. But again, rematches don't count. Price is much like Lorelei. He's got just as many water types as ice types. I'd rather not repeat the water-ice duality, but I don't see any other options. Let's keep Piloswine and Dugong, but ditch Seal, because no one likes Seal. Then we'll add on Sneasel, a Pokemon he always should have had, and Shelder, since it turns into Ice-type Cloyster, and he had some Shelders in the anime. Finally for Johto is Claire, who is already a Dragon Water Specialist. At least in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, 2 of her 4 Pokemon are Water type. Now this does mean that Chuck, Price, and Claire would all have Water as their second type, but like, it's just what works the best. It's the best fit for Chuck. There's so many water ice types, and like, the non-dragons that they use are always Gyarados, and then Kingdra's a water type. Be nice to me. Claire's 5th Pokemon would be Seadra, the devolved form of her ace, which is common for gym leaders to use. All right, now we're going to Hoenn, and this is a good time to mention this, that whenever I'm picking teams for these regions' gym leaders, I'm picking from the most expanded version of their regional decks. So for the Hoenn gym leaders, I'm picking from the Oris Hoenn decks. Roxanne would add Steel to her rock specialty. It pairs nicely with Probopass once her Nosepass fully evolves, and it lets her use Aron alongside Nosepass and Geodude. Side note, I know I said I'd add 1 Pokemon if they use less than 5, and she uses 4 in Emerald, but I personally don't think any first gym leader should have more than 3. So they're an exception. I only add 1 if it would not take a first gym leader over 3. Brawly is a fighting specialist, and he would add on Water. I know, it's another water add-on to a fighting specialist, no less, but like, guys, he's a surfer who lives on an island. His title is a big wave in fighting. He has to use water. His original Emerald team is Makuhita, Machop, and Meditite, so I say we drop Meditite and add on Corphish and Marill. Specifically Huge Power Marill, so he has physical attacking water types. In all the non-Emerald games, Watson uses Magnemite, Voltorb, and Magneton. I hate this team passionately. Not only does it repeat an evolutionary line of Magnemite and Magneton, but like, we're in Hoenn! Where are the Hoenn electric types? Manectric's right there! His Emerald team repaired this egregious error, so I'm using it as the base, and he does still use Magneton on it, so Steel makes sense as his secondary type. Let's swap out Electrike for Aron and then tack on Mawile.
Ha-ha! It is I, Guarantee Boy!
Hey man, what's with the robe?
I am here to praise Helix. Mattresses! The sponsor of today's video! A few months ago you recommended them to me and I got one, and it has improved my sleep in spectacular ways.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. My Midnight Lux is great. The Helix sleep quiz matched me with it based on my sleeping preferences, and since getting it, I've been sleeping more soundly and comfortably and waking up with way less back pain.
I got the Midnight Lux as well. Are we similar?
It must be a coincidence.
Yeah, you're probably right. But anyways, it was so easy to get. Free shipping in the US right up to my door, nicely rolled up in a box. They offer a 100-night sleep trial to test it out, and it passed my test with flying colors. And their 10-year warranty is lovely to have. I love everything about Helix, so I wanted to spread the good word.
Well, you picked a good time. It's a fantastic opportunity for our viewers to get Helix mattresses of their own. Helix is running their Labor Day sale where for a limited time, you can get 25% off your purchase. Check out the link in the description below.
Ah yes, praise Helix.
I gotta admit, when you first said that, I thought you were going somewhere else with it.
The only place I'm going is to bed. Good night and ta-ta!
Flannery uses fire, but then her second type could either be rock, due to using slugmas that become rock-type Macargo, or ground, due to using Numel and Camerupt. I vote ground because it doesn't require evolving any Pokemon, and it fits with Lavaridge being close to the desert. Taking her Emerald team, we swap out Numel for Trapinch and then add on Baltoy. Norman never uses any Pokemon that are not pure normal type, at least in the Hoenn region, so we have a lot of flexibility. And hear me out, I think he should use Ghost. His badge is the Balance badge, and he likes Pokemon grown in a balanced manner. Ghost type balances well with Normal, being immune to Normal's only weakness. So, taking his Emerald team, we drop Vigoroth for Dusclops, which is close in stat total, and then add on Sableye. Winona has one of the most diverse teams of any gym leader with a type specialty, at least in the earlier games. None of her Pokemon on any individual team overlap their not flying type. So for her second type, I feel comfortable latching onto her ace's other type, Dragon. I don't want to give her a Salamence, but she does get Dragonite in Emerald rematches, so maybe she could eventually. But for now, I'd take her Emerald team and swap out Swablu for Vibrava, which works nicely since it has Levitate. Tate and Liza are basically already rock-type specialists alongside Psychic due to using Lunatone and Solrock. I would keep their Emerald team exactly the same, but add on Relicanth. You dive to find it not far from Moss Deep, and it would give it a cool chance to shine. Wallace would add Fairy to his water specialty. His ace is Milotic, a Pokemon whose whole thing is beauty, and I honestly think should have gotten Fairy. He also uses Love Disc, another Pokemon that definitely should have gotten Fairy. Taking this team of 5, I'd drop Whiscash for Azumarill, then Celio and Seaking for Wigglytuff and Gardevoir. Juan shares Wallace's vibe, but his team differs more. While Love Disc, Whiscash, and Celio match instead of fancy Milotic and trying to be fancy Seaking, he uses Mean Crawdaunt and Meaner Kingdra. In case you don't remember, this Kingdra is a rest double team set, which is fully evil, and so therefore, he should have Dark type. So we drop Love Disc and add Carvanha since they have almost the same stat total. Yes, Love Disc is that bad. Then we replace Whiscash and Celio with Sharpedo and Absol. I chose Absol because it and Juan have similar upward hair vibes, and also oddly it can learn Water Pulse. Now for Sinnoh, picking teams from the Platinum decks. For Roark, as boring as it is, unintended, Ground makes sense to add to his rock specialty. Like Brock, he has Geodude and Onix and works underground. Replace Geodude with Hippopotas. Remember, no first gym leader with more than 3 Pokemon. And this is a rock ground team through and through. Gardenia is tricky. She has the Grass Poison Roserade, but her other 2 Pokemon have nothing to do with poison. I actually think a totally different type works better. Fire. Now, hear me out. Her Platinum team has Cherim, not Cherubi, which changes forms in the sunlight. But her only way to set that up is Turtwig with Sunny Day. I think it'd be cool if she replaced Turtwig with Chimchar, starter for starter, and then added on Magby. Then she'd have 3 Pokemon that can use the sun, plus just the generally powerful Roserade. Next is Maylene, a fighting specialist. At first I wanted to give her Steel due to Lucario, but none of the Platinum deck's Steel types really fit her vibe. Instead, I wanted to give her Psychic. It works well with her pink hair and Metatite, and then if we tack on Kirlia, it can turn into Gallade for a rematch. Or she could just have one to begin with, but it might be a bit much to have a level 30 gym leader with 2 Pokemon that have base stat totals over 500. I know Norman's done it, but like, he's got the whole Truant thing that kind of balances it out. Crasher Wake is a wrestler, so fighting type is an obvious fit.
And yes, it's water fighting again. It will continue to happen. I am sorry.
I'll have him keep Floatzel and Gyarados, then add on Machoke since it fits his buffness, and a Toxicroak. Krogunk is found in the Pastoria Marsh, and its dry skin ability pairs well with any rain he could use. Fantina is a ghost specialist, but she should add on Flying. Her ace is Mismagius with Levitate, but also Drifblim feels like her signature Pokemon too, thanks to the yellow plus on her dress, and it's what she uses in contests. If her battle is the 5th one, like in Diamond and Pearl, her team should be the Drifblim, Gengar, and Mismagius she already has, plus Murkrow because it's another Duskstone Pokemon. With Gen 4 mechanics, all of these Pokemon float. Sorry Gengar, may your Levitate rest in peace. If she's instead the earlier 3rd gym leader, like in Platinum, I say the team should just be devolved to Mismagius, Drifloon, Haunter, and Murkrow. Byron should add Rock to his Steel specialty. It's a nod to his son Rourke, plus not only is his Bastiodon part Rock type, but it also allows him another Rock Steel type, Probopass. I see his team as Bastiodon, Probopass, Steelix, and Graveler. I chose Graveler since it's all over Iron Island, just like Steelix. And he has a little cabin there. A little cabin that's empty, I'm pretty sure that's his. Candace is tough, since on her Platinum team, every Pokemon has a different secondary type. However, in Diamond and Pearl, she randomly uses Medicham. Okay, not randomly, she had to, because the only fully evolved ice types in the Sinnoh Dex were Abomasnow and Weavile. As a reminder, Diamond and Pearl are bad games. Platinum is an excellent game, but I will never forgive Diamond and Pearl for its terrible regional decks. But in addition to the Medicham, Maylene goes to visit Candace in Snowpoint, with Candace expressing interest in the fighting type. So therefore, Candace's 2nd type should be fighting. I want to keep her 2 aces, Frostlass and Abomasnow, then have Medicham of course, then add Machoke, caught nearby at the Acuity Lakefront. Finally, I'd give her Glaceon. I think she should remain a majority ice specialist, and yes, this is replacing the Sneasel she does use with Glaceon, a Pokemon she's never used, but I just feel like she should have used Glaceon. The Ice Rock is right there. Finally in Sinnoh, Volkner. Full electric team in Platinum, only half electric in Diamond and Pearl. Again, worst regional decks of all time. The only options are Luxray, Raichu, and Pachirisu. They didn't even give him the Pachirisu. So we can look at this Octillery and Ambipom to pick his 2nd type, and from those 2, I lean more toward water. He lives somewhere coastal, and he could run a sweet rain team with 100% accurate Thunders. So he keeps Electivire and Luxray his 2 aces, plus Octillery. I'd love to give him Lantern, but it's not in the Sinnoh Dex, so let's toss on Rotom Wash. I know Rotom Wash is weird. In Gen 4, it was Electric Ghost, and Rotom itself was super rare and like basically considered like a legendary, but let's look at this with modern mechanics. Not only is Rotom Wash an electric water type, but also Rotom is everywhere. It's in our freaking phones now. Volkner can have one. Finally, I'd give him Pelipper since Wingull is all over the place nearby, but also in modern games, it can have Drizzle, which will be very helpful for his Rain Thunder strategy that I'm giving him. Now for Unova, using the Black 2, White 2 Unova Dex. The triplets all have Lillipup plus their monkey, effectively making them half element, half normal specialists. Toss on a Patrat and call it a day. I've always been kind of torn between thinking the Striaton Gym concept, you know, where they use the type that's strong against your starter, is like cool, but also like super lame. Like, I don't like that they use a Lillipup instead of like another Pokemon of their type specialty. Especially since in the immediate next gym, Lenora uses Herdier. You fight the Lillipup line 2 gyms in a row. Charon, the normal gym leader in Black 2 and White 2, should add Dark as his specialty so he can add Purloin to his Patrat and Lillipup. I chose this because it's the first Pokemon he catches as your rival in Black and White. Lenora is a normal specialist, but she should also be a rock specialist. She runs the Nacrene Museum, which not only has fossils, but it's where fossils can be revived. She should keep her Watchog, but then I think it'd be fun if instead of Herdier, she has Arkin and Tortuga. the Unova fossil Pokemon. Roxy's focus is poison, but her ace is Whirlipede, so Bug is an easy add here. Conveniently, the Black 2 White 2 dex has Skorupi, giving her another bug poison type that would not be a bug type if she was fought later. Berg loves bugs, and thanks to Leavanny, his second specialty should be grass. There are some other good reasons grass works well for him though. He often travels to Nacrene City to help with Artist Block, and therefore must pass through Pinwheel Forest, where he could catch a Pansage, whose dex entries say it can help relieve stress. Castelia City is also near the desert, where he could get Maractus, which shakes its Maraca-like hands to scare off bird Pokemon, which both bug and grass Pokemon would appreciate. Plus, Maractus needs some kind of love. It is so forgettable. I'd set his final team as Leavanny, Dwebble, Pansage, and Maractus. I see no reason to keep Whirlipede when it's Roxy's ace. Elisa is an electric specialist, but her black and white team has 2 Emolga, clearly indicating a fondness for flying types, which also makes sense considering her friendship with Skyla. Her team would be Zebstrika, and then, while I normally don't like this, I say she keeps the 2 Emolgas, and then instead of Flaffy, she uses Electric. She uses Dynamo in the anime, and Electric's Levitate makes it so 3/4 of her team are electric types that are immune to ground. And I think that's pretty cool and fun. Clay is a ground leader, and Steel is the obvious second type for him. He already has Ground Steel Excadrill, then in Black 2 White 2's challenge mode, he has Onyx, which can simply be evolved into Steelix. For his last 2 Pokemon, I think he should keep Krokorok, and then add on Clink, since it doesn't evolve until level 38, so it can't be a Clang. I think this line works well regardless though, since not only do gears fit with his industrial equipment stuff, but also he lives close to Chargestone Cave. Skyla is the pilot flying specialist, but like Winona, her Pokemon have a wide variety of secondary types. However, her Black 2 White 2 challenge mode team has her use both Swoobat and Sigilyph, and that's enough for me to give her Psychic. Swanna, Sigilyph, Swoobat, and finally Beheeyem, since it's a very forgotten Unova Pokemon, and LGM is found in the Celestial Tower close by. Bryson only has 3 pure ice types, which is inconvenient. However, have you ever seen how he handles Team Plasma in Pokemon Generations? He straight up knocks that dude. He doesn't even need a Pokemon to do it. Give the man fighting type. Oh, and also all of his gym trainers are black belts and battle girls. Bryson keeps his ace Beartic plus Cryogonal, but will round out his team with Sawk and Lucario. Sure, he uses Scrafty and Heracross at points while acting, but he's playing a character there. Sawk and Lucario work perfectly because they maintain the most important theme of his team. They're blue. Drayden uses only pure dragon types in black and white, but adds in Flygon and Altaria for Black 2 White 2's challenge mode. This kind of makes things a bit tricky, but we can get help from Iris. While champion in the sequels, she and Drayden are counterparts in black and white and have the same team. So we could just pick a team for Iris and then just make that Drayden's too. This is Iris's champion team, and only one type appears more than once other than Dragon, Rock, because of Aggron and Archeops. So let's make Drayden and Iris Dragon Rock leaders with Druddigon, Aggron, Archeops, and Haxorus. This works nicely since Druddigon has a head as hard as rock too. Finally for Unova is Marlin, water specialist and fantastic swimmer. I like giving athletes the fighting type, since many existing fighting specialists are athletes and not just martial arts, with Brawly being a surfer and Karina a skater. I'd love to give him Poliwrath, but it's not in the dex, and I would also give him Keldeo if it wasn't mythical. So instead his team would be Jellicent, Caracosta, Lucario, and Sawk. Yes, those are the same ones I just gave to Bryson, but Bryson and Marlin are never gym leaders at the same time, and also Marlin needs these specific fighting types because they're blue. We now move on to Kalos, starting with Viola, the bug specialist. While her gym team is Surskit and Vivian, the Surskit has evolved into Masquerain in the Battle Chateau. Clearly, she should also be a flying specialist, so tack on Butterfree since Caterpie is found in Santaloon Forest, and you're good to go. Grant is the rock gym leader and has Amara and Tyrant, the 2 Kalos fossils. If Fossil was a type, that'd be his second specialty, but I guess Fossil is already a type and it's rock. I think the simplest thing to do is pick Ice or Dragon, and I pick Dragon, simply because Axew can be found in Connecting Cave, which is attached to Sillage City. So his team is Axew, Amara, and Tyrant. Karina is in a weird spot. She's a roller skating fighting specialist whose ace is Halucha for the gym battle, but Mega Lucario elsewhere. Between Flying and Steel though, I think Steel is a better secondary type since Steel is the armor type, and she's wearing a helmet. So her team would be Hawlucha, Lucario, Machoke, and Pawniard. And Pawniard's there because it's wearing a helmet. Next is Ramos, and this may be controversial. But in addition to his grass typing, I propose Steel. I know I just did that for Karina, but look at those freaking scissors. Goodness. I'd have his team be Gogoat, Jumpluff, Ferrothorn, and Doublade. Doublade gives him another set of scissors. As would Scizor, but like, Doublade's a Kalos Pokemon. It's always nice to fit in a home region Pokemon on a gym team when you can. Clement would add Normal to his electric specialty simply because Heliolisk is a normal type. I'm not doing Steel again, but also I'm not giving any more attention to the freaking Magneton line. In the first 6 generations, 5 gym leaders use Magnemite or Magneton. It's ridiculous. I would make Clement's team Heliolisk, Dedenne instead of Emolga, because it's like really weird that he used last gen's Pika clone that like the last gen electric gym leader also used. Like, why the hell did he never use Dedenne in the first place? Diggersby, since he has one in the anime, and Luxray, because he has one in the anime. Valerie would add Psychic to her fairy type. I know this aligns with Sabrina, but the two of them actually have 3 things in common. 1, they use Mr. Mime. 2, their gym uses warp tiles. And 3, they have scary eyes. Valerie's team would be Ace Sylveon, Mr. Mime, Gardevoir, and Espeon, because 2 evolutions would be fun. Olympia is a psychic specialist herself, but one heavily focused on space. Thus it makes sense for her to add rock type so she can use Solrock and Lunatone like Tate and Liza do. They're also space related, they live near the Moss Deep Space Center, but like Olympia like is space. That would make Olympia's team Ace Meowstic, Solrock, Lunatone, and Nosepass, since it deals with magnetic fields, which are a part of space, kind of. Finally, for Kalos, Wulfric would be ice plus grass. He already has Abomasnow, which should have been Mega. I will die on this hill, but he also spends time in the Winding Woods and Pokemon Village, lush and verdant places. So his team would be Abomasnow, that again should be Mega, Avalugg, Cryogonal, and Amoonguss, since it's found in both the Winding Woods and Pokemon Village. Next are the Kahunas from Alola, which are not technically gym leaders, but function like them in the Alola game's progression. And also you all voted that I should include them, which to be honest, I do not appreciate because they are tricky. For all their grand trial battles in all of the Alola versions, they either have teams with no secondary types at all, or teams without any repeating secondary types. Their aces are all single-typed Pokemon too, at least before the Pokemon League. It's great modern game design giving us more team variety, but bad for this video. I was frankly at a total loss for a while on this, but then I remembered something. The Island Guardians. Kahunas have close relationships with the Island Guardians. They are chosen by the Tapus and tend to their temples, so their connection with the Guardians is very strong. So I think it'd be pretty cool if the Kahuna's second type specialty is the non-fairy type of their Island Guardian. So for Hala, he would add Electric because of Tapu Koko. His team would be Ace Crabrawler, Makuhita, Elekid since it becomes Electivire, which I feel could work as an electric fighting type, and Pikachu as a nod to his grandson Hau. Because of Tapu Lele, Olivia would add Psychic to her rock specialty. Yes, this is the 3rd rock psychic combo in this video, but I really like this Island Guardian theme, and so I am committing to it. And at least I can't give her Solrock and Lunatone since they're not in the game. I definitely would if they were, though. Olivia's team would be Ace Midnight Lycanroc, Nosepass, Pau Oricorio, which is the psychic type Akala Island one, and Starmie because she loves gems and it basically is one. I chose Nosepass over Anorith, Lileep, and Boldore because her league team always has Probopass, probably the one that works in her jewelry shop. Nanu's Island Guardian is Tapu Bulu, so in addition to Dark type, he gains Grass. This works nicely since, as I've discussed in other videos, his Alolan Persian should be Dark Grass type in order to properly wield the power of the watermelon it swallowed. Unfortunately though, neither Cacturn nor Shiftry are in the Alola dex, which is inconvenient. Instead, his team would be Alolan Persian, Krokorok, Trevenant since it's not Dark type but is spooky, and Cradily since it's the most deserty grass Pokemon in the dex due to being Rock type. As a reminder, Tapu Bulu's ruin is in the Haina Desert. Finally, Hapu, who thanks to Tapu Fini adds water to her ground specialty. This works the best of all 4 because she already has a water ground type. Her team is Ace Mudsdale, Gastrodon, Whiscash, Flygon, and Wailord. Wailmer's the most common Pokemon at Pony Breaker Coast where Tapu Fini's ruins are. Next up are the Galar gym leaders, and for their teams, I'm only picking from the base game Galar decks, not any of the DLC stuff, because I want their teams to make sense for a first playthrough without having to buy the DLC. Milo should super obviously be grass and normal. Wooloo are everywhere around him. His gym challenge is herding Wooloo, and they are not grass type. Tack on a Wooloo to his team and we're done. Nessa's ace is Dreadnought, so I think a simple rock addition to her water specialty works nicely. Her gym team would drop Goldeen for Binacle, another nice water rock type, then add Roggenrola. Kabu is the fire specialist, but with the unique ace of Centiscorch, Bug works as a second type. Sadly, Larvesta and Volcarona are only in the DLC dexes, so I can't give him those. His gym team would be the same 3, but I'd add on Ninjask since he's from Hoenn, so I think he should have a Hoenn bug type. B is tough to decide since she uses almost no dual type Pokemon, but she does use Pangoro in the gym battle, and I think Dark works well for her second type. She tries to avoid weakness and thus always appears intense, and I think the combination of combat and darkness achieves that well. Her team would be Ace Machamp, Pangoro, Scrafty, Sirfetch'd, and Crawdaunt. Alistair would add Ground to his ghost specialty, mainly because he uses Runerigus. This allows him to also use Golurk, which he doesn't use, but it fits perfectly. This would make his gym team Ace Gengar, Runerigus, which I evolved from Yamask for the first gym battle, Golurk, Cursula, and Silicobra, since it's found close to Stow-on-Side. Opal would die, so I don't have to write her entry. I'm just kidding. It's just that hers is tough, and she's retired, and I'm tired, and I didn't feel like doing it. But this is my job, all right, so I'll do it. Opal's ace Alcremie has no secondary typing, then all her others have different secondary typing, none of which pair with Fairy again within the Galar decks. So I say forget all those and let's get environmental, in multiple senses of the word. Her gym is in Balanleia, a town within a forest that has giant mushrooms. So let's do grass. Do you see now what I was saying about multiple senses? Because like it's her environment, but also like environmental, going green, nature, grass type. Anyways, Alcremie stays, of course, but then we add Shiinotic and Trevenant from Glimwood Tangle. Finally, I'd keep her Galarian Weezing, then add Whimsicott, another grass fairy type. Bede is easy. He would be fairy and psychic because he basically already is. He was a full psychic specialist before Opal recruited him, and his final main story team has 3 psychic fairy types. To make it more official, I'd add on Gothitelle, the fully evolved version of one of the pure psychic types he used before becoming gym leader. Gordy and Melanie are mother and son, but they have a strained relationship due to Gordy's choice not to focus on ice types like his mother. And honestly, I'm with Gordy here. Like, he set a boundary and just wanted to forge his own path and not just copy what his parent did. That's fully reasonable, and Melanie freaked out about it like an immature, overbearing Little League parent. Like, come on, Melanie, be a better mother. Go to therapy. But anyways, back to their beef. Interestingly, both of their aces have a secondary type that is super effective against the other's main specialty. I'd like to expand on that, which maybe is making the relationship worse, but like none of this is real. So Gordy would be dual focus on rock and fire. His Colossal remains his ace, plus Stonejourner, Shuckle, Torkoal, and Heatmore. Sadly, Macargo is not available, which is maybe the first time I've ever said that. Then Melanie with ice and water, I know, again, sorry, would have Ace Lapras, Cloyster, Arctivish, Ice-Q, and Wailord. Piers would add poison to his dark specialty, since Skuntank and Toxtricity make up 2/3 of his Galarian Star Tournament team. That would make his gym team Obstagoon, Low-Key Toxtricity, Skuntank, Malamar, and finally the perfectly suited Drapion. Meanwhile, his sister Marnie would add fighting to her dark specialty, since she uses Toxicroak and Scrafty, starting with their unevolved forms from the very beginning of the game. I know this is the same as B, but their teams are very different. Marnie would use Grimmsnarl, Morpeko, Toxicroak, Scrafty, and Hitmonlee. Raihan's gym team has just as many ground types as dragon types, so that's a clear choice for him. His team would be Duraludon, Flygon, Sandaconda, Hakamo-O, since with its hidden ability Overcoat it can be immune to sandstorm damage, and finally Steelix, since of the remaining ground types in the decks, it's the most dragon-like because of its serpentine shape, like Sandaconda. And I'm not doing the minor league gym leaders or the characters who used to be gym leaders, but you fight them when they're not gym leaders anymore. It's just, this video's long enough. So finally, Paldea. Katie is a bug specialist, but is also a baker running a patisserie, and since dessert is often associated with the fairy type, I think that suits her. Unfortunately though, since I'm not using the DLC dexes, that means no cutie fly or milkery. I say we drop Nimble, then replace it with Fido. I know this means her team only has one bug type, but due to terastallization, Teddiursa counts as a bug here. For all the Paldea leaders, I'm not gonna really focus on the original typing of their ace Pokemon, just their Terra type, because that's what they effectively are in the battle. Brassius would definitely add Normal to his grass specialty. He already uses Grass Normal Smoliv, so if you add on Shroodle, that completes things nicely. I chose Shroodle because it eventually becomes the painting Grafaiai, and Shroodle even dabbles in painting itself, and Brassius is an artist. Iono focuses on electric types, but I would add on Poison. She doesn't use any poison types, but she's a streamer, so she's toxic. Taking her gym squad, I'd remove Luxio and put in Toxtricity, which would be under its evolution level, but it's fine. Lance used underleveled Dragonites, she can use a little bit of an underleveled Toxtricity. Then I would add Marini, since it's found close to coastal Levincia. Kofu is a water specialist whose town is right up on a desert, and in fact, sandstorms can start during his gym battle. Because of that, I think he ought to be using some ground types better suited for a sandstorm. His team keeps Crabominable and the Veluza he so lovingly mentions vaulting. Vaultin' Veluza! But then I'd swap Wugtrio for Dugtrio to be cheeky, then add on Gastrodon. Larry is easy. He's a normal specialist in the gym, but flying in the league, so he could just be normal flying for the gym battle. If we take his gym team, then replace Komala with Braviary since he uses it in another battle, we just add on Flamigo, his ace in the league. Rhyme uses ghost types, and while normal would make sense since normal is often associated with sound, and she's a rapper, there are very few normal types with a sound focus like Exploud or Audino in the Paldea dex. The only one I found was Squawkabilly, and I'd want at least two, and also like, Squawkabilly is just, it seems annoying. Like, I feel like she'd definitely just be annoyed by Squawkabilly. Instead, I say we give her Ice, since her town is surrounded by it. Drop Banette from her gym team and replace it with Frostlass, then add on Cryogonal, which is not a ghost type, but it kind of reminds me of one. Tulip is a psychic specialist that uses fairy type Gardevoir and a Florges that turns psychic type. So yes, this is another psychic fairy person, but like, they have a lot of overlap, okay? And also it just really fits her. She's a famous makeup artist and fairy is heavily associated with beauty. I would take her team and just add on Sylveon since it's a refined fairy type, not a menace like Tinkaton. Finally, Grusha, the ice specialist. I would give him fighting, since as I mentioned, fighting suits athletes, and he's a former pro snowboarder. For his gym team, I would replace Beartic with Crabominable, then add Metacham, since not only is it a nod to an ice leader of the past in Candace, but also I think it'd be a really good snowboarder with that balance. It's always on one leg. Very impressive. So that was every gym leader with 2 types, but what if every Pokemon had 2 types? Click or tap here to check out my video where I give a second type to every Pokemon that only has 1.